Are you familiar with the concept of a golden goal in football?
Yes.
Or soccer?
Yeah, when you go to extra time, first team to score, they win. Everybody goes home, makes some beans.
Yes.
Eats the beans.
In England, the custom is to go home and make beans after a football match. That's correct. Traditionally, that's true, except it was not true in the 1994 Caribbean Cup. They decided that a golden goal was going to be worth not 1, but 2 goals. So you end the game, but then you also get 2 points rather than 1 point.
Because why? Yeah, we're
goals,
playing Calvin ball, whatever. Screw it.
Yeah,
you
sure.
win, it's fine. Nothing matters.
That's the thing, is like, you might as well just make it 20.
Yeah.
The thing is, that would not normally be a problem, except in football, you're also dealing with a table. And the table also has a
goal differential.
Where
that can actually...
Where it can like have some pretty serious ramifications in terms of qualifiers. So
that never came into play, but it's just a very interesting thing for us to know.
Not exactly. In this particular match, it's Barbados versus Grenada.
Okay.
Grenada sits at the top of the table, tied with Puerto Rico, and they have a 3-goal differential above Barbados. So Barbados needs to beat Grenada by 2 goals to move on to the finals.
Okay.
In the 83rd minute, so roughly 7 minutes to go, they're up 2-1. But that's not enough to get them into the finals. So they remember this golden goal thing that we just discussed.
Yeah.
That it would get them 2 goals. So they're thinking,
well, we could score another goal and get it to 3-1, but with 7 minutes left, that's looking a little dicey. It might just be easier
to play for the tie despite already having the lead.
To play for the draw and take it into extra time.
Barbados, you magnificent
Sneaky.
bastard.
Imagine the mental math you have to be doing in that scenario to know, oh wait, we could do this entire other strategy.
Wait, was it a team thing? Like they went from trying to score, or was it like a rogue?
I believe it was an organized thing because, and there's footage of this, what they just do for another minute or so is just dribble the ball back and forth between the goalie and one of the other team members, and then eventually just kick it in and score the own goal. So now they're thinking, okay, there's roughly 3 minutes left to go. We're tied. We're going to take it into extra time.
But Grenada, they caught on, right?
The gears start turning for Grenada. Now they're realizing what Barbados is up to. If we take it into extra time, they have
a chance to knock us out.
They have a chance to knock us out with 1 goal.
Right.
So what we need to do is either beat them by 1 goal, or we could still lose by 1 goal, which is not enough for them to advance to the finals.
So Grenada hits a point where the ball just has to go in either net.
They have to go into either net. Now you have one team that is trying to score in either net, and one team that is simultaneously defending both nets to keep the result to take it into extra time.
I like to picture the team would just split up 5-on-5, form a wall in front of both goals.
It seems like the simplest thing to just lock arms and just create like 2 little horseshoes of people around each goal.
It doesn't sound that far off from like Pee-wee soccer. It's just a bunch of kids running around.
It devolved very quickly.
Please don't tell me Barbados wins.
Barbados scores the golden goal, and they win by 2.
Knocking
out Grenada and moving on in the finals.
Oh, you know what? Okay, I take it back. That's good. Good. Grenada does not deserve... If they couldn't score an own goal or a normal goal...
Sure, but they shouldn't have to be expected to score an own goal to
I'm
move
just saying,
on in the finals.
Theoretically, if a team is defending both goals, they are able to pick a side and play 10-on-5 plus a keeper. Like right?
You're right. They didn't win the tournament overall, but that doesn't matter because we're not talking about the champion of the 1994 Caribbean Cup. We're talking about Barbados.
And so did the final score actually read?
The final score was 4-2.
4-2.
Yep.
And if you look at the score summary, there's 3 goals.
That's right, yeah.
2 goals. Who got bored and decided, I want to see a 2-point goal?
I don't know why they made that rule going into this tournament. I don't know why it meant 0 resistance. Like, I don't know why no one said, hey, that could potentially screw up goal differentials.
It's like there's one dude who got so far up in the ranks of FIFA and was like, finally I can fix the one thing wrong with this sport. Has this ever happened since?
I don't believe that it has. I'm pretty sure they got rid of it. The Grenadian manager, to his credit, was pissed.
Sure.
He said,
I feel cheated.
yeah.
The person who came up with these rules must be a candidate for a madhouse. I have never seen this happen before. In football, you are supposed to score against the opponents to win, not for them.
Yeah, but that's coming from the guy who couldn't coach his team to score on their own goal.
Fool. Would you consider yourself a little bit of a bad boy?
No, I am an extremely good boy. I have the certification to prove it. I don't have my license on me, but
Your good boy certification? Yeah. Sure. Being a bad boy can sometimes be fun. I think you can get away with some things sometimes. The best way to do it is if you are the perfect mix of like a little bit of a bad boy, but then also you really know the rules. If you know the rules really well, then you can figure out where to strategically be a bad boy, and it can work to your benefit. A great example of this philosophy is the 1976 NBA Finals.
Celtics and
the Suns.
Suns.
Right, yes. And one of our viewers, Cold Snap on YouTube, reminded us that Game 5 of that series, which was incredible for a lot of reasons, has a great weird rule in it that I think is perfect for this philosophy.
Okay, I feel like I know nothing about that game or that series.
You're gonna love it because it's truly nuts. It contains what I have since learned is widely considered like one of the best finals games in history. So the Suns are up 1 point with 4 seconds left to go. So the Celtics get the ball back, and John Havlicek makes this great 15-foot bank shot to put the Celtics up 1. And the Suns get the ball back with 1 second left on the clock. So they take a timeout. But the thing is, they don't have any timeouts left. That means the Celtics get a free throw because that's a technical foul.
I've never thought about this before.
Yes. So in 1976, the rules almost explicitly stated if you call a timeout and you don't have any timeouts left, you do still get the timeout.
So it's like a luxury tax. It's like if you want more timeouts, it's going to cost you 1 point per timeout.
Exactly.
Which in that scenario that you're describing is totally worth it.
Yeah,
You'll
for
give
sure.
them a point. You'd
Yeah.
probably give them 2 points if you could
Right.
get a timeout. And you get to advance the ball.
Exactly. Which is what they did.
That is an unbelievable loophole.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And this is in the final? I had never heard of this before.
This is in Game 5 of the 1976 NBA
Right.
Finals. Yeah.
And so probably didn't matter, right? Like,
Well, it did kind of. So we are in double overtime right now,
Yeah.
and the Suns then do hit a 2-point shot
and send it.
and send it into a triple overtime. They lose the game eventually.
Yeah.
The Celtics did win that game.
I feel like if the Suns had won that game, because obviously the Celtics won the series.
Right.
If the Suns had won that game, that would be one of the biggest stories in NBA history.
It would be crazy.
I have never heard of that before today. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
And it could have actually been even crazier because the Celtics did a very similar thing in the first overtime, and the referee, whose name was Richie Powers, just kind of ignored it.
Man. By the way, Richie Powers,
Yeah.
kind of a weird move not going with Dick Powers. When your name is Richard Powers, he could have been called Dick Powers.
He could be Dick Powers. It's impossible to know if behind the scenes maybe he's going by Dick Powers.
Just seems like a waste of an opportunity.
He was later attacked in this very game because what happened was when the Celtics made that basket to go up by 1 point, the clock showed 0 time left. So everyone went nuts in the Garden because they thought the Celtics just won the game and start pouring onto the court.
Yeah, that's an era where you could just do that.
You could just do
run
that.
out on the court.
And the Celtics started heading back to the locker room, like people are freaking out. And then you can see in the footage, this guy, Richie Powers, the ref, is being attacked by a fan and is like actually dragged down to the court.
And this is before
the
Suns
get the ball back and all of what I just told you. So not only are they dealing with this, but they have just moments ago had to get like 200 people off of the court and back into the stands to continue playing the final second of this game, which is chock full of just Suns chicanery, basically.
Oh my God.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Him hitting the shot makes it a big deal. But if they had gone on to win the game, is this rule still a thing? I guess that's my main question.
They have since changed the rule and basically said, if you take a timeout and you don't have any timeouts left, the other team does get a free throw. It's a technical foul, but then they also get the ball back.
Okay, so
You
that
do not
completely
get- so
solves that.
completely solves the issue.
Because I was almost thinking because I'd never heard of that rule before. I was almost thinking if the Celtics hadn't won that game, they would have known to close the rule, but they figured it out.
They
anyway.
definitely did.
That's
they
too
definitely
bad.
did, yeah. So that just got me thinking about like, oh, if you have the right amount of book smarts and then swagger to break the rules, you can totally take advantage of it.
I mean, that's weird rules, baby.
That's what the show is all about, man. This new roughing the passer rule in the NFL
Is awful.
It's bad, right?
Yeah, like it's literally one of the worst rules I have ever seen depicted in major sports or minor sports.
Would you agree that back in the day, it was way worse though?
Ryan, back in the day, NFL linemen, defenders, whatever, they had to trudge uphill both ways in the snow to
Okay.
the stadium.
Right.
Whether it was August or December, the snow was there.
The snow is always there.
Yeah, it's always there.
Sure. Things I think were worse back in the day.
I would hazard to guess.
Yes. There is one particular rule. Are you familiar at all with the Ben Davidson rule?
I am not.
Okay. This rule basically changed how defensive players were allowed to target dudes who were already down on the field.
Okay.
To protect them from basically getting murdered if they decided to go down to end a play or whatever.
So we're talking about like you're on the ground, play is like clearly over, whistle has blown, and I come in like a heat-seeking missile and just like take some dude out that's already on the ground?
Exactly.
Okay, all right,
Exactly.
good.
It was legal to do that until
Like-
1976.
For what reason? Like I understand.
The love of the game, baby.
Like you gotta assert your toughness by not touching the guy down with like two hands or something like
I
that?
guess. I don't know. But the whole reason that rule came to play was because the Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs had that crazy rivalry. It's November 1st, 1970. The Raiders are at Kansas City. So quarterback Len Dawson for the Chiefs is like,
Well, we're on third down. We've got less than 2 minutes. We're up by 3. I'm going to just run for the first down, and then the game is iced, and I'll just run out the clock, and it'll be good to go.
Yeah.
so he does what every modern quarterback does. After he gets the first down, he takes a dive and he goes down.
And we can
and
all
he's
go
thinking we can
and-
all go home and hit the shower.
Yeah, let's all
and-
go in the locker room and smoke cigarettes and
Yeah, exactly what they did in the, get on a plane and destroy it or
Yeah.
whatever they did in the 70s. Raiders defensive end Ben Davidson, who's a big boy. He comes up behind Len Dawson, who's already on the ground, and just with the crown of his helmet right in the small of his back,
boom!
full speed.
I can just like hear, like I can see the like NFL films, like the dun 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 dun.
It's really funny that you mentioned that because we actually have the NFL Films clip of this game. Do you want to see it?
Absolutely.
Okay. So that's our boy Len.
Look at that! Look at that hoss with the
goes
block
down.
there, by the way. What
Oh,
are you doing?
Isn't that crazy?
Okay, well, absolutely, yeah.
And
you
then-
got to give him the hands.
Here, watch this again.
Yeah, okay, so I played really, really bad high school football, and like the one thing they tell you, like literally the first day of football is not to use your helmet as a weapon.
Sure.
Like, that's literally what he did.
And that's precisely what we just watched.
That's incredible.
It's crazy. All hell breaks loose. And they have this huge bench clearing brawl.
Yeah.
There are personal foul penalties on both sides.
I'm surprised they even had personal fouls in the 60s, but impressive.
Yeah.
Big ups.
Right. The penalty's offset. So the Chiefs have to replay the third down. They
Okay.
lose the first down. On the next third down, they do not make the conversion. They have to punt on the fourth down, and then the Raiders go on to tie and eventually win the football game because of our man Ben Davidson going right into the back with the helmet.
Yeah, well, look, it's 50 years later, and now the Raiders are going to Las Vegas. So who really won in the
yeah.
end, right?
Yeah. So 6 entire years later, of course, because that's the NFL speed, the standard speed for actually making a rule, they enacted what later became known as the Ben Davidson rule, which is basically, I'll read it to you. The actual verbiage is Rule 12, Section 2, Article 6G. No unnecessarily running, diving into, cutting, or throwing the body against or on a player who, 1, is out of the play, or 2, should not have reasonably anticipated such contact by an opponent before or after the ball is dead. And I think you can reasonably assume that if you're the quarterback and you've gone down and you are making no forward progress, you're done.
Hey, Len, head on a sliver, buddy. You should have known.
Yeah, you
should have
gotta,
known.
dude. And with the back exposed
Yeah,
like
come
that, you
on.
can't have a big boy defensive end.
You
Just ignore that.
You invited that. Come
Yeah,
on.
dude, he was asking for it.
So you said it took 6 years, right?
Yeah.
So I imagine like the yearly like spring meetings, and so it's like 5.5 years later, and some guy was like,
Hey, you remember that thing in the Raiders-Chiefs game like 6 years ago? Wow, that was messed up. You want to like...
Yeah, remember
Figure it
when
out,
Len
or-
Dawson was almost
like
paralyzed?
literally almost died on the football field because
Right.
he slid or whatever. Like maybe we go back and revisit that.
Yeah. Or maybe just every season it was like, I don't know, ratings are up.
Yeah, like now's not the time. Like,
People really like the blood sport aspect.
come
I
on,
don't
read the
know.
room, Tom. Like now's not the time.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, man, it's tough. It's tough for a guy out there these days. This seems like makes a lot more sense. The new rule seems like it makes less sense.
It's kind of like the NFL knows it like has to change all the time. Like the NFL like knows it has to adapt, like it has to change. Like ostensibly, yeah, all right, player safety, whatever. But like,
Yeah, sure.
Well, yeah, whatever. You know.
Yeah.
But like, are you really doing it the right way, or are you just kind of like throwing darts at the board and hoping that it works out?
Right. Do you think the NFL will ever be able to figure this out?
I don't know, Ryan. Think about it. You're trying to inject perfection in an imperfect game, an imperfect system with imperfect humans. At the end, maybe the fault is within ourselves that the NFL can't get this right.
Sure. Or maybe we'll just wait 6 years and they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
If you were picking out a jersey number for your sport of choice, what do you think you would go with?
I would avoid the obvious selection and instead go with number 68, but legally
Okay.
change my last
appreciate
name
that.
to add 1-2.
So it'd be Will add 1 to number 68.
Yes.
And your jersey would read add 1
Add
to
1 to
68.
68.
Okay. Good.
69.
I got it. And I'm really glad we got that out of the way at the beginning of the episode. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Got to get one in.
It does also connect to the rule that we're talking about because the NCAA
Sexy
maybe
rule.
Not quite. I think they got a little ahead of you. You cannot use the digits 6, 7, 8, or 9 on a college basketball jersey
Really?
under the NCAA. Yes.
In either spot.
In either the 10s or the 1 spot. Anything above 55 is out. And then anything below that, if the second number is 6, 7, or 8 or 9, it's not available. You have 0,
Interesting.
you have double 0,
Yeah.
a choice of one of the two, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, so on.
But not like 63.
No 63. In your lifetime, you have never seen a college basketball jersey with the number 6, 7, 8, or 9 on it.
I'm pretty sure I have, but
Name one.
27,
No,
49.
wrong.
I'm pretty sure I've seen a 72 though.
Incorrect.
Pretty sure.
I mean, you probably should just take my word for it.
well, okay, sure.
The crazy thing to me is it's actually in the rule book for the game. So
Yeah.
all of the other rules for the game are included in this. This is not just like
Like the ones of how to play basketball.
right, the standard ones, like how to score a point and what the floor looks like.
Need a net.
It's Rule 1, Section 22, Article 7, Clause B2, and it basically just says the following numbers are legal, and then it lists them out. It doesn't even say don't use these digits. It says you can use 0, 0, 0, 1,
Because
2.
the rule book was written by a frustrated parent who was just trying to cut off their young child from asking follow-ups.
Right.
But 27's in there.
27 is not in there. No. Do you know the numbers in the order that they go in?
Most of them, yes.
Okay. The whole reason the rule exists is because when a referee whistles a foul on a player, they flash a hand signal to the scorer's table with that player's number.
Okay.
But because you only have 5 fingers on each hand and you need 1 hand for each digit of the number, neither of those digits can be greater than 5. That is the reason that this rule exists. So
I understand the words. I understand.
Right. It's a thing where the
What it
logic
means.
makes sense, but it also doesn't make sense. The crazy thing is the NCAA doesn't know exactly what the impetus was for this rule. They know that they enacted it sometime in the mid-60s, but they don't have like a clear record of when that exact wording went into. So I don't know if there was like a specific instance where this was a problem and they had to make a rule.
They don't have logs of the meeting where they were going through like, yep, we'll have the 2-point shot. Mm-hmm. Yep,
right.
yep. We'll have free throws.
Oh, yes, very good, very good.
And then what about those big numbers?
Oh my God, the numbers. Anything more than 5, forget about it. Look at these. Look, what am I supposed to do with these?
Maybe there's just one dunce on the committee that everyone was like, God
Fine.
damn it, fine. Gary, whatever you want. I don't know why, but that makes me so mad.
It's a thing where it doesn't affect the game,
Right.
but it's also such a non-issue that it doesn't make sense changing it
Sure.
because it's already in the book. So might as well just leave it.
Why bother?
Right.
Yeah, it's like the Texas state constitution, I'm pretty sure, still says if a man steals your horse, you can kill them.
Right.
Maybe they're not, they don't want to verbalize it because they don't want the players to know they've
They
called
wanna
a foul
embarrass
on them.
anybody?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
like, there's so many people came out to this game.
Sorry, who made that foul? Oh,
It was number 17.
number 17. But well, wait, 17. The NBA doesn't have a problem with this. You can use any number from 0 to 99.
That's where I saw a 27.
You probably saw it in the NBA.
Okay.
Yes. FIBA had a very similar rule for a long time.
It makes sense for them, though. In international play, I understand you wanted to rely on fingers for signals.
There's a little bit less communication happening because of the language barrier, sure. Their rule was you can't use 1, 2, or 3, because again, those are reserved for fouls.
Okay.
But you can have the next 12 digits. You can have 4 through 15 for a 12-man roster.
That's a better way to do it instead of being like, we're giving you a choice with extremely limited options.
Sure.
It feels a lot like in Pee Wee football when there's just a barrel of jerseys and they're just throwing. It doesn't matter. QB can be number 40.
Right.
Like, just as long as it fits.
Yeah, sure.
The thing I find most fascinating about this, for such a stupid rule, I think I'm hearing this right. This means that I have never seen in college basketball 6,
Correct.
7,
Right.
8,
In your lifetime, no.
9,
Correct.
16, or
Right.
17,
Yep.
18,
Okay.
19,
I would think I'm just gonna-
26, 27, 28
Yep.
even,
No, you've got it.
29, 36,
It's this way, right?
37, 38, line.
Seth, today I want to tell you about a somewhat minor rules violation that cascades into such a cluster that it results in one player scoring for 2 basketball teams in the same game.
On purpose?
No, not on purpose.
By accident?
Yeah, kind of by accident.
Did he get traded in the middle of the game? That's not
Technically, yes,
How that
he did.
works.
But the game didn't happen on the same day. That's the clue.
Okay.
So let's go into it. It's November 8th, 1978. The New Jersey Nets are playing the 76ers. Bernard King is already sitting on 1 technical foul, and he gets his 2nd tech. So he is ejected from the game. On the way out, he kicks a chair in the tunnel, and the referee gives him a 3rd technical,
Okay, which you can't do.
which you cannot do. But it stands for whatever reason, and he goes into the tunnel, and they do the free throw shot or whatever.
Yeah.
And the coach, Kevin Loggery, of course, gets upset and starts chewing out the official, saying, you can't give my guy a 3rd technical. And he is already sitting on 1 technical himself. So Kevin Loggery gets an additional 2 techs from this referee, who's just handing out rogue 3rd technicals. He's like the Oprah of technical fouls.
except people who already get cars get additional cars.
Right. You have a 3rd car, and you
I
have a
don't
3rd
have
car.
room in my garage for all these.
I don't need another car.
Like he's got a t-shirt cannon for the tech, just like black,
Yeah.
black,
Yeah.
black. Fan, you get a technical.
Here's a
scorekeeper, you get a technical. Other ref, black, you get one too. Like you can't do this, man.
Yeah. One is for T-shirts, and then the other one is just for T's.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
A T cannon.
A T cannon. He also gets ejected.
Okay.
The game continues. The Nets lose in a 4-point deficit in
Okay.
double overtime. So it's really close, and
Those technicals mattered.
they matter
quite a bit.
right?
Okay. I see where this is going.
Yes. So the Nets protest the game, which requires a $1,500 deposit. I found out researching this.
Yeah. Sure.
Like,
Do you get it back if you?
I don't know. All I know is you have to come up with $1,500 to go to the commissioner and say you want to protest the game.
Which is such a piddling amount of money that does
It's
nothing
not-
for anyone.
I don't know where the $1,500 goes. It's not like you're paying people to come. It
Yeah.
costs far more than that to run a professional
There's
basketball
one
game.
employee in the NBA office that's the entire way that they make money.
So the Nets successfully protest. The commissioner at the time, Larry O'Brien, says, yes, we will fix this. We will replay the game at another date, starting at the time when the first
Yeah.
3rd technical happens. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We're going to start in the middle of the third quarter, and we're going to replay the rest of the game from there. So Bernard King is still out of the game
Right.
because he got the second technical. Kevin Loggery's additional technicals are eliminated, so he gets to come back and
Right,
coach
because he
that
was
game.
responding to
Precisely.
an injustice that he was responding within a reality that technically does not and should not exist.
Right, that's exactly what's happening here. The NBA is nullifying the reality of this game because of this official's errant proclivity for extra technical fouls. But this replay of the game does not happen until March.
Okay.
And the original game happens in November. In the intervening months, the two teams, the Nets and the 76ers, conduct a 2-for-2 trade of players on their teams.
Of course.
One of which is Eric Money, who is a guard with a phenomenal last name
Yeah.
for the Nets. He gets traded to the 76ers and is activated somewhere in the 135 days between these two games.
Right.
So by the time we get to the replay in March, he's playing for the opposite team and becomes the only player in NBA history to be listed. Your face is the perfect response to this story. Take me through what's going through your head.
Okay,
right now.
so he played for both teams. Which way did he go? He went from the Nets
He went
to
from
the
the
Sixers?
Nets to the Sixers.
And so they let him play for his new team in the new reality,
They
or
let-
they trade him back for the purposes of this game?
Great question. They let him play for the new team
Okay,
in the
that's
same
the only
game.
that's the only right way to do that.
Take me through your other option.
Okay,
I think I
because
see where
the
you're going with
other
this.
option, which is justifiable but practically a problem, is you're like, all right, well, technically in this reality that we're trying to recreate, you're on your old team.
Right.
So you got to go join your old teammates, go to the other locker room, put your jersey back on. You know, you've picked up your life, taken your wife and kids and moved them to Philadelphia, but just for now, you got to pretend like it's the old days. And by the way, don't try to lose the game, even though you're on a different team now. That's the big problem there.
Right. Unless he too is operating in the old reality and is eliminating from his head that he is now a Sixer and is back in Nets mode.
Yeah, that would require some sort of like brainwashing or like a Clockwork Orange type thing where they're like, these are your real memories. None of this actually happened. You spent the
Right.
last 2 months as a New Jersey Net.
It kind of feels like a weird dream scenario.
Man, I could never be a commissioner of a sports league because if I were Larry O'Brien, when you get that protest from the Nets, you're just like, no. You know what? No. You have a great case, but no, it's too hard. Life's unfair. Goodbye. Over.
Simone, are you a big Air Bud fan?
Yes,
Why are you so nerdy? You look very afraid.
because I lied. I've never seen it, but I wanted to play with you in this space.
Premise of that movie is the dog can play sports and they have to let him because there's no rule that says a dog can't play sports. The funny thing about that is there are so many rules in actual sports that came to be because players tried to do things and they pointed to the rule book and said, there's no rule that says I can't do it. And baseball is a really good one of them.
They got feisty. Baseball players, notoriously feisty.
Especially back in the 1800s when baseball was made. We broke into a museum, much like the plot of National Treasure, the movie, and got this rule book, which is officially the National League Baseball rule book from 1876.
They printed it out on their 8.5 by 11 paper on their old crank printers.
Yep, that's right, and we managed to get a copy of it.
I'm so proud of you.
I want to share with you some of the ridiculous rules that baseball was built on and then later changed because of all of these feisty baseball players.
Please paint a beautiful picture for me. Are they wearing funny pantaloons, first of all?
Of course, wearing funny pantaloons.
See
They
that.
all have handlebar mustaches.
With the
And
grease.
they're all named like Spanky and Willie and have ridiculous names. Back in the late 1800s, one of the rules was the batter had the right to call where the ball was going to go.
What?
Yes. So in this original rule book, in Rule 5, Section 5, it actually says, so they were called the batsmen back then. They weren't batters, they were batsmen. The batsman, on taking his position, must call for either a high ball, a low ball, or a fair ball, and the umpire shall notify the pitcher to deliver the ball as required.
Just give me your nastiest curve. Give me the curve, man.
Right? Yeah, you could just go out there and say, I'm not really feeling it today. I want a nice low one. And you would have to turn to the umpire and say, I'd like a low one.
Wow, so the communication between the pitcher and the catcher was irrelevant at that point.
Essentially, yeah. It didn't matter because the batter
He's like, I'm gonna throw high and fast. Okay, throw high and fast.
Well, that's what he asked for, so sure. That sounds good to me. They didn't have like all this rewatch system that we had. So there's also another rule in this. It's Rule 7, Section 5. I think you're going to really like this one. Should the umpire be unable to see whether a catch has been fairly made or not, he shall be at liberty to appeal to the bystanders and to render his decision according to the fairest testimony at command. Which, first of all, I love the way this is written. It's very like 1800s. Render his decision according to the fairest testimony at command.
Yes, sir, I have a fair testimony. Will you hear me out?
If they didn't see it, they could turn to the guy in the crowd and be like, hey, did you
catch
happen to
that?
catch that?
Did you see what that guy did?
So yeah, these guys would just turn to someone in the crowd and say like, hey, help me out here, which you absolutely can't do today.
I love it though.
Yeah.
Crowd participation, and it keeps people engaged. It keeps them paying attention to the action.
It keeps the umpire on their toes, because I imagine it must not feel very good to have to turn to a Joe Schmo who's just sitting there eating his hot dog and being like, hey, listen, did you happen to see that? Because I was,
Aw, shit.
I looked away at a bird for 2 seconds and I missed it. But my favorite rule that we found in this old rule book, it's actually Rule 510A in the current rule book. No substitutions may be made while the ball is in play, which makes sense, right? You can't just send another guy out into the outfield when the ball is in the air. That would be ridiculous. But Simone, there was no rule that says you couldn't do that. They airbutted this rule in 1891. There's an actual story of a guy doing this, and they had to make a rule that said, hey, you can't do it. His name was Michael Joseph the King Kelly. Yeah, gross, right? His nickname was $10,000 Kelly, because that was like a lot of money back then.
10K Kelly.
Oh, 10K Kelly.
Taking the field.
10 grand Kelly. Wow, what a lot of money that is. He was a player manager, and there was a long, high foul ball that he realized no one on his team could catch. He was on the bench at the time. In the middle of the play, the ball being in the air, he goes, Kelly in to catch, because that was his name. So he runs onto the field from the dugout, screaming, Kelly, Kelly in to catch, Kelly in to catch, and goes and makes the catch and makes the out. And the umpires are like, you can't do that. You can't just substitute not just another player, yourself, into the game in the middle of a play. And he was like, well, there's no rule that says I can't.
Do you think he knew this for sure, or was he just like gambling on a prayer there? Like, it's probably not in the book.
I think
I'm going in, boys.
probably there was a big element of, I'm just going to see if I can get away with this. Yeah. And immediately the umpires were like, no, you can't do this. And he said, there's no rule that says that I can't.
And then they asked the crowd, and the crowd was like, I don't know,
We don't know, we don't.
There's no rule says he can't do it.
Yeah, I'm looking at the rule book right now. They let him do it, and then that winter, in between seasons, they were like, we have to write a rule
They were
that
like,
says.
fuck this guy.
Fuck this guy.
So at what point, if ever, did baseball actually become a sport?
That's a really great question. Because really, as it is right now, it's not a sport, right? Like, they're just making up a lot of these rules on the fly.
They're giving the other team exactly what they want.
They're giving the other team exactly what they want. Important decisions are being made by Joe Schmoes who are drunk in the crowd.
When you think about it, like, they tell you exactly where to go. It's like a board game.
I also feel like a lot of this stuff just got changed because games would suck, and they would be like, that took too long. We can't do this. We have to change this rule.
They tried to ask the audience what the call was, and there was no audience because they were so bored that they left.
I think you're probably right. Leaving a baseball game is the most interesting thing that you can do during a baseball game. So I think maybe they were on to something, but they really needed to change the rules to get people back in.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah.
What is the coolest thing that Shaq has ever done?
All the times he broke 1,000,000 rims.
Yes!
All the times he pulled the rim out of the backboard or shattered it or pulled the whole thing down onto itself. Absolutely the best.
See, I thought you were going to say Kazam or the General Insurance commercials.
Steel would be the answer.
I forgot about Steel.
Yeah, Steel, which I think was a Superman movie that they said, no thanks.
Steel
Yeah.
is the coolest. That is exactly right. That is the coolest thing Shaq ever did. And he did it multiple times.
Oh, like all of the time.
Do you want to watch some best ofs?
Absolutely.
Here's one where it almost kills, looks like 3 or 4 people.
Yeah, it's like one of those walkers from Star Wars
Yep,
falling down.
And then it just kind of goes to bed. It goes to
It's
sleep.
like, you know what? They should play. They should be like, well, too bad. Now we're playing with it at that height. Thanks, Shaq.
At this point,
Yeah.
they actually had to wheel it into a storage unit in the back of the stadium and weld it back together in the middle of the game
Sure.
to prevent him from killing somebody.
What's that
or
phone call
himself.
like? Like,
Hey, anybody got any welding gear?
Hey, where's our welding man?
Where's our welder?
Oh, he went back to Jersey. He's home right now.
would you ever invite Shaq as a kid to like come play basketball at your house?
And playing basketball on one of those things where like you had to fill the base with water or
water.
sand or
Yeah,
something like that? Sure. Only because it would be the coolest thing I've ever
He'd
seen.
destroy it.
Yeah,
He'd
he would
absolutely
he would destroy it.
Get 100 of them and be like, wreck all of these.
Yeah, he would
You're,
do it.
you're a monster truck, but for basketball rims.
Now in the NBA,
Yeah.
doing that is a technical foul. Did you know that?
That seems unfair.
Because of Shaq.
Why?
They made a Shaq rule that said if you do it, you get a technical foul. Do you want me to read the actual verbiage of the rules
Yes,
for you?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So this actually appears in an appendix for the NBA rulebook called Comments on the Rules.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
It's section 2G, and it says, any player whose contact with the basket ring or backboard causes the backboard to shatter or makes the ring unplayable will be penalized with a non-unsportsmanlike conduct technical foul.
Why are we penalizing the person? Like, shouldn't we be blaming the manufacturer for making this non-Shaq-proof rim?
You
and
can't give a
backboard?
technical foul to Wilson or whoever it
Why
is
not?
makes the
Go
Spalding.
call up. Just boop, 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 boop. Yes, hello?
Yes.
Yeah, just so you know, one more and you're out.
Just blow the whistle right into the receiver.
Yeah.
This is Wilson's wife. He's not home.
Well, you tell him
Well-
when he gets home.
One for you, lady. But it is a non-unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, so you actually cannot get ejected.
Isn't that just a sportsmanlike?
It is a sportsmanlike.
Okay.
The double negative makes
Okay.
it a sportsmanlike conduct penalty. You could line up as many rims and backboards as you want and have Shaq just go and rack up 100 technical fouls. You can't get ejected.
Shatter. Like it's like a karate demo. You know how you see like karate masters just like
Boom, boom,
board,
boom, boom,
board,
boom.
board, do that, but with basketball rims.
Well, and then the grand finale has to be several backboards stacked one on top of another,
yes,
and then he
yes,
just palms it
yes.
down from the top.
They're like one's at 10 feet, 9 feet, 8 feet, and he dunks through all of them, bringing them down.
In a column. In the 1992-93 season, he broke 2 of those, like we saw in the clip.
Yeah.
Where the actual supports were damaged
Were
or somehow
rendered
useless,
unsafe.
basically.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it was quite unsafe. So what they did was they actually sent engineers to all of the stadiums to check out all of the machines. They're like machines that they wheel out. So they had to check every bolt and screw and welding point to make sure they could handle Shaq's massive frame to keep him from doing it.
So I want to be clear. The same thing when like a bridge collapses somewhere in America,
Sure.
and the mayors of America get together at Mayor Club, and they say, okay, it's time for all of us to check all of our bridges.
Right.
This was that, but basketball.
Sure, yeah.
Cool.
The National Transportation Safety Board came and did an investigation and made sure exactly who was at fault
Right.
for the manufacturing defect.
So I have a question. The rule says it's if the player makes contact with the basket ring or backboard, right? Let's assume that I'm amazingly strong.
Okay.
What if I throw the basketball so hard at the backboard that it shatters?
Then you would be Chuck Connors, who was a basketball player who was
This is real?
who was the very first basketball player to break a backboard, and he did it by throwing the ball at the front of the rim,
Yeah.
which impacted it into the backboard, and
Sure.
it was missing a piece that kept this very thing from happening, and it broke the backboard.
I didn't know that was a thing.
I now suspect you have gone back in time
No,
at some point and
I
done
am-
this.
I am a seer, but in a very limited, useless way.
Very terrible,
I'm the
awful
worst
way.
X-Man.
Yeah,
Great.
you would be Chuck Connors, who then also went on to have a 40-year acting career. He played for like half a season for the Boston Celtics and quit, and then became an actor.
Well, after you do that, you're probably like, oh, I shouldn't do basketball anymore.
Or you're done.
Right.
like,
I
what?
said I could do it.
I said I
You said I couldn't.
I did something more awesome than I thought I could do, and now I'm done.
You said I couldn't Tetris a basketball hoop, but I did.
I did.
So there.
So there. You know how the NFL has a bad habit of making decisions that don't feel very well thought out, particularly when it comes to like player safety and things like that?
Yeah, like when they try to protect quarterbacks by asking defenders to not sack a quarterback with their whole body weight.
Yes, that's exactly right. What if I told you that it's always been that way in the NFL?
No. The same NFL?
The very same one, friend. It was so bad that even the first down chains were dangerous for quite some time.
Wait, what?
Yep.
Were they using like leftover landmines from World War II?
They were just giant guns. They were pointing at the ground. Do you know who Bubba Smith is?
Yeah. The actor, you mean? The actor Bubba Smith
Yes.
from Police Academy.
The actor from the Police Academy movies, yes, Moses Hightower. Well, it turns out he was actually a very good football player before he became a very good actor. He was an All-American defensive end from Michigan State. He was one of the few players whose jersey they retired.
Oh, wow.
He was a #1 draft pick in '67.
Okay.
And he was also huge. He was a big boy. He was like 6'7", very fast.
Could barely fit in the academy.
They had to, yeah. Well, I mean, there's that one scene where he has to rip the back seat out of the car so that he can fit in it.
Improv.
Right,
Yeah.
completely improvised on set. He actually has, unofficially, a rule named after him in the NFL.
Good for him.
Well, not exactly. It's a little bit of a bummer reason that he's got it named after him.
Cool.
Because back in the early 70s...
Thanks for having me on.
You're very welcome. Back in the early 70s, the first down markers were like spikes on metal rods that they would shove into the ground to pin the chains down on the sidelines.
So they created a tripwire with
So
their
they
own
essentially created a tripwire. And they were like really in there. They required some effort to pull out, which I can only assume meant that games went on for 6 hours. So every first down they had to like yank these things out of the ground.
Did they think like by calling it first down there was only one, and so they wouldn't have to move them?
Right. No, that semi-permanent thing, that's totally fine.
No.
You're not going to have to move those around. In a preseason game in 1972, the Baltimore Colts, the defense he was playing for at the time, intercepted a Terry Bradshaw pass. Bubba Smith goes to set up for the block, and he's running down the sideline, and of course the inevitable happens. He gets tripped up in the chains, blows out his knee, basically destroys his leg.
In preseason.
Where the games are so meaningful.
Right.
And misses all of the 1972 season. And then after the 1972 season, the NFL was like, maybe we should change some of this potentially lethal equipment.
That's so NFL. They waited until the end of the season to change. So what do they change? Did they completely revamp it? I'm guessing not, because it sounds pretty similar to how it currently is.
It is very similar. They basically just said, go to the hardware store and replace those spikes with like the rubber tips that you see on like the end of walkers or like tables in your kitchen.
Cut a tennis ball open, slap that on the bottom.
They could have even just sliced open a football and just used that.
We still use the chains.
We still use the chains. They're incredibly archaic. But it's better than the alternative that they had looked into right around the same time in the early 70s, which was a laser system that would have required permanent metal tracks along the sidelines, like a rail, for these lasers to slide up and down that would have measured 10
That can't be real.
yards in front of the line of scrimmage.
That can't be real.
It's totally true.
And
surely with the technology in 1972 or whatever this was, that would have meant it would have been basically a giant, like, one of those Husky toolboxes your stepdad keeps in his garage.
With like 5 dudes having to man it because no one understood lasers.
Sure.
Really.
It would basically be the Booger McFarlane cart that they have now for lasers with lasers.
I love that sounds peak NFL saying, okay, you don't like this idea of the chains that are just spiked into the ground. Mm-hmm. Well, what if we put 2 metal tracks and then there's more obstacles on there? Just so people can be like, no, that's a worse idea. And they're like, okay, we'll stick with what we had.
I guess we'll stick with the less dangerous option we already have.
4-star hand.
Yep. Bubba Smith did eventually come back.
Okay.
To play for another 3 or 4 seasons, but he was never really the same. He eventually retired and then got into policing. Was featured in the documentary series known as Police Academies 1 through 14. It's a bummer because Bubba Smith was really good. He won a Super Bowl. He won Super Bowl 5 with Baltimore. He actually got to play in Super Bowl 3, but he didn't wear the ring that he won in Super Bowl 5 because he was convinced that the NFL rigged Super Bowl III in favor of the Jets to help the merger.
That's great.
So he was
That's
just like,
great.
I'm not going to wear this ring.
I love that. I love that. And if a player playing in it thought that, I'm now convinced that it was rigged. They faked the moon landing. They could fake a Super Bowl.
Easily.
Hey, look at you. You made it all the way to the end of the Weird Rules Marathon. Good for you. Reward yourself by watching Secret Base videos here, and don't forget to subscribe for even more.